Hey, how's it going? So today I wanted to talk about a piece that I wrote on WordPress, and I'm actually making a video about it because there's some things that I wrote in my longhand that did not make it into the WordPress. So I want to talk about those, and then also a few days ago I found this rock. Well, I didn't find it. I had found it, I think, last year. I think I remember picking it up outside. This little guy. It's, I forget the name of it. I have to look it up. And it's just like a shard. Like it's a chip from, the main rock, I guess. But I was moving some stuff around, looking for something like that, and I had picked up this jar, and I guess there was something I wanted in it, and I ended up dumping out the jar. And there are a lot of jars around here that have like seeds and like rocks and maybe pennies in them, just because they're just like a handy thing to drop stuff in, and I always lose track of where did I put the jar I put the seeds in. So there's like 5 or 6 jars with seeds. Anyway, this guy was like floating around in the bottom with all that stuff. And I picked it up, and as soon as I touched it, it made me start feeling stuff. Like, if you've ever put your tongue on a 9-volt battery, there was a feeling like that, but it was coming through my finger, which it still is right now, that is touching the part that broke off of the main rock. Like, you can see it's like a little bit of a dome shape. And it broke. So I've been touching this flat side. And when I say I've been feeling stuff, like the finger thing, right? And then like a staticky or a heating up of my skin in certain areas, like not the whole body, my whole body. And this has happened other times with other things, but it's very strange, I think. If you've ever seen any old episodes of like 50s or 60s sci-fi, like maybe Twilight Zone, and they've had aliens, and I think it was Twilight Zone. Oh, and Star Trek, I think, had this too. There were aliens that were telepathic, and you knew, like, you couldn't hear what they were thinking because they were telepathic. But we're talking old TV technology here. Sorry, I'm like sliding down in my chair. Just a wreck. My nose is running. Anyway, they would make sounds and like what do you call that thing? Eugene Merman plays it. I can't think of the name. I can't ever think of stuff when I get on here. Anyway, mellow? No, it's an instrument. It's a musical instrument. It has like antennas that come out of it, and it's like a table, and it's all woo. I'll write the name in the... I'm making a note so I don't forget. Instrument. Info. Box. Anyway, it would have like sounds so you would know, and then they would do like other things to give you idea that the alien was thinking stuff. But my favorite thing that they would do was, the ones I'm thinking of had big, like, bulbous heads, like upside down garlic. And they were like gray, and their heads would like go concave and plump back out, like cave in and ripple. It was moving. Like it would move around, and you were like, "Oh, that must be the telepathy happening." But yeah, when I'm holding this rock, and other times, I have felt what feels like my scalp rippling, like underneath, maybe between the scalp and the skull. I don't really know what's happening. There's, I've collected a whole catalog of things that I feel at certain times, and also with, like, come on, I almost had it. Like being in, like, this is not the right word, but being in the vicinity of someone, like being around them. I can feel different things related to different people, and I don't actually have to be around them. Like, once that feeling has been established as this is belonging to that or connected to that, then that's what it is. Well, anyway. So I was like, okay, well, some people can hear crystals and things, and I feel like it's communicating something to me, but I didn't know what. So I just was sitting on it for a few days, and I would just, I have the rock where I keep my tarot cards and stuff, and so I would just be sitting there, and I'd have it in my hand and whatever. And I was just like, okay, well, like overnight the next day, I was like, I don't know. I don't know that it said a damn thing to me. I guess I'm like not receiving well or something. But then I saw a video that came up, and then this was today, because this has only been like a couple of days with the rock, like since the weekend, and it's Tuesday. So today, a video comes on, and it's all talking about how rocks have stored energy, and they have the most ancient stored energy. Like, they pretty much specified sort of between a crystal and like a rock, but they all have the capacity to store information. And I will link that video if I can find it. I don't know how this is, but this keeps happening where I'll watch something and I'll be like, okay, I'm going to get that later because I liked it, and then I'll go back and look for it, and it is nowhere to be found. And then other times, there'll be something and I'll be like, okay, I'll watch it. Like, I won't want to watch it, I won't want to watch it, I won't want to watch it, and then I'll be like, fine, maybe if I watch it, it'll go away. And then I'll watch it and it won't go away, and it's like, why are you here? And the thing I want is nowhere to be found. That's life, I guess. Sorry, got a little sidetracked there. But, so I thought, that's interesting that rock thing should come up, because I've been so, like, wanting to know, like, what is this thing telling me? It's, like, it hasn't diminished since I picked it up in, like, it feels just as strong as it did the first day the other day when I picked it up out of the jar again. I was like, whoa, this thing is like buzzing in my finger. So it's still doing it. And then yesterday, the piece that I wrote is sort of like covers a bunch of ideas that I've been thinking about and talking about for a while. But like I said, what I wrote in the WordPress is not actually what I wrote here. I used to be so good at just like transcribing what I wrote, and then in the like editing process, after I felt like I was done, I could just go over it and then work through it and fix it. But I keep like writing the thing with the intention of transcribing it, but then I'll start. And in this case, I ended up putting it down because something happened that I had to go attend to. And then when I came back, I just didn't really refer to what I had written again. But it has a lot of the same themes. But what it didn't have was this whole thing I got into about how sort of being disconnected from nature is part of what problems we have are rooted in. And I always think that we could live a lot better with nature, if we didn't try to like conquer it and overpower it and move it out of the way and stuff. So one of the things that I think that we're doing right, that we started to do I know of two of these on the West Coast, and they're wildlife overpass bridges. And obviously, people could cross over them too. They're big enough for that, certainly, like on foot, or like a bicycle or electric motor chair or whatever, but not, I don't think a car, but there have been like trail cam videos, and there's like all manner of animals taking advantage of the ability to cross a dang freeway because it cut through their habitat. And that is a good thing. That is more living in concert with nature, I think. And so I think we need to do more of that. And what was the other thing? The animal bridges. Oh, and the other thing that I've been not concerned about, but I've been paying attention to it, and I won't go out of my way looking for it, but I'll stop what I'm doing to watch something about it, and that's the animal break-ins. And first time I saw it, a deer had broken into, I think, a bank or something. So they're in there like, I'm imagining the sound of hooves on the like hard floor of a bank, which is sometimes like marble or some sort of hard stone, and it's funny, and like it was like out of place, but underneath that is like, why is it breaking in buildings? And do I have to tell you? Just for the sake of clarity, I'll say I believe, and I'm sure there's evidence to point to this being true, animals are breaking into buildings because the buildings are on top of where their habitat used to be, or it's because they know food's going to be in there, because since the buildings and the people and the paving came, the habitat where their prey and their feed is, limited to gone. And it's not right, and it's not fair. And what are they supposed to do? Go get a job? Apply for food stamps? No. I mean, they're coming to us, and we're like laughing at them. We're getting afraid of them. We're thinking, how can we eradicate them? How can we get rid of them? Have you seen a starving polar bear? That cuts me so hard. You know why they're starving? Because the ice floes that they used to hunt are melting. And I always think we need to feed them. And I always think now of the animals that break in. The bears that break into the trash and into the homes, into businesses. We need to feed them because we have made it impossible for them to feed themselves. So, like I said, I've thought about these themes a lot, over years. And I don't know, yesterday I was like, I just gotta address this. And that was part of what was in my longhand that didn't make it into the WordPress. And I felt like it was important to include that because it adds context to what I had said. But so that was like kind of cool. And then today I watched a channeling from yesterday from the Arcturians, and they talked about us like reconnecting with nature. And then I also talked about it in my piece, which was called Nature Takes Back. And I talk about in there about how nature's messed up because we're kind of in their way, but we're kind of messed up because we're acting like nature doesn't exist and isn't a part of us and doesn't affect us. And it's like, it does. That's why you can't just pull out a fish of an ecosystem or let it die when it's endangered and just be like, it's just a fish. Well, it's just a fish the same way you're just a fish in your family, but if you're gone, there's going to be consequences, and things will happen to your family as a result of your death and not being there. So, I mean, pretty simple for me to understand. Like, we want to preserve, like, all of the pieces of our ecosystem are valuable, are vital to the ecosystem, to us. We're ecosystems ourselves, and we don't function properly if we can't feed and maintain ourselves on the fuel that was meant for us, which is the same thing the animals are missing from their lives. So now they're eating a bunch of processed food too. None of that is right. Like, it just to me, okay, it's opinion commentary, but just none of that feels or sounds right. Like, we're eating weird manufactured. Does it even have food in it? Like, after they tweak it around and crispy critter it to death, is it still a food? It's questionable. That's why, like, you gotta learn how to make your own food, you know. And wow, I have a friend that has diabetes, and they cannot, like, they've done everything they've been told to do. I think we all put our best face forward when we're talking about these things. So I'm just gonna say maybe he doesn't do everything, but they've done a lot to address the issue, and they still have the problem because there's extra sugar in stuff that doesn't even need sugar in it, and salt in stuff that doesn't need salt, and so on and so forth with the chemicals. Because you know why? Because those people that make them just want to sell them. They don't care who's eating them and what it's doing to those people. And maybe they don't eat processed foods, but just like those little plastic beads that are everywhere in the water, they're in the fish, they're in the land, they're in us, they're in our blood. So I think it's too late. You'd have to have a really separate, untouched by the whole rest of the world system of food production for your own self to escape, like, the processes that we've done to the food here in America. Is just bled everywhere like a grossness. But the Arcturians, that's what they start talking about, is like realigning ourselves with nature. And one thing I talk about in my longhand is, do you have contact with animals? Do you have a pet? Are you allowed to have a pet? If you're not allowed to have a pet, do you have a stuffy that's an animal? Do you look at pictures or videos and movies? Like, do you love animals? Do you acknowledge their existence at least? I mean, I think they just need to be part of our life in some way. And that's what the Arcturians were talking about. And it's just so weird. So it's like all of these ideas sort of converge together from my own brain and sources that I frequently access or daily access, like the Arcturians. Or this little rock. It just took a while for it all to, I don't know, for all of the right measurements in the formula to be correct, I guess. But I feel like I finally deciphered what the little rock was trying to tell me. It's like, you know, we're hooked up. You can feel me. I can feel you. And I think what it means is it's not just me and this thing. It's like me and whatever aspect of nature. Like, it doesn't have to be animals. That's just, you know, animals kind of directly give back, like, in the moment. Nothing like getting a purr. But flowers, I used to have something against flowers. It was really stupid, but I'll leave it at that. And now I love them, but not just because how they look. That's a huge part of it, but they're full of all this amazing geometry. Like, I just look at them and go, like, just get sucked in. So yeah, I mean, I asked a question, and I think this did make it into the WordPress. Do you live in a concrete canyon where there seems to be no nature? There is, though. I mean, even flora. That if the what is the acronym for? I can't remember it. The shit hitting the fan. If that happens, then there are weeds that grow in cities, and I think you can find a dandelion weed everywhere. I don't think they discriminate anywhere in the world. I think they're just like the the what do you call it when you have blood O? There's a blood O of plants. I see. I lost the word. There's a word for that. I know there is. I just can't think of it right now. So okay, it is time for me to be done. But I think I got my point across. Like, that's not so important for all of you to know everything that I just said. It was just important for me to get it out. And yes, this is the way I like to do it. So fire me. What are you gonna do? Anyway, thanks for listening, and thank you, and good night.